Born and raised in Phoenix in 1966, Alison Levine didn't have a particularly athletic childhood. She participated in community theater and occasionally rode horses. She attended the University of Arizona and worked overseas in the pharmaceutical industry. Being abroad inspired her traveling and adventurous spirit. A light bulb went off one day and she headed for Mount Kilimanjaro in Tanzania. The rest was history. Her greatest hurdles were her illnesses. Wolff-Parkinson-White syndrome is an electrical abnormality in the heart. She eventually had a curable surgery in 1996 at age 30. She also battles with Raynaud's disease, a disease which inhibits blood flow to the surface of the skin. The disease is intensified by cold weather and stress. She eventually learned to manage her symptoms and went on to accomplish one of the most extreme expeditions known to date, the Adventure Grand Slam.
On May 24th of just last year, 8 years after my failed attempt, I did make it to the summit of Mount Everest in honor of my friend Mag. Oh, thanks, you guys. Thanks. Thanks. And for me, it was the completion of what's known as the Adventure Grand Slam, which is climbing the 7 summits, the highest peak on each continent, and skiing to both the North and South Pole. And people ask me all the time what that felt like. You know, what did it feel like to fight your way up that mountain 8 years later and go through everything that you've gone through and finally stand on that summit? What was that like? And I can honestly tell you, it just wasn't that big of a deal.
But it is a big deal. There are less than 50 people who have completed the Grand Slam, and only 8 of those are women. Here you can see where each of the 7 summits are located. They include Mount Kilimanjaro in Tanzania, Mount Elbrus in Russia, Mount Aconcagua in Argentina, Vinson Massif in Antarctica, Mount Everest in Nepal, Mount McKinley in Alaska, and Puncak Jaya in Indonesia. Alison then went on to create her own nonprofit organization, the Climb High Foundation.
A huge reason why we're here is to try to make a difference for the local women in the Ruwenzori mountain areas. It's been a very tumultuous area, a lot of civil war. The region's just been devastated.
We have to struggle for life. There is no business which we can earn.
We're hoping that we can train local women to work in the mountaineering industry and become trekking guides or mountain guides or even porters. By establishing themselves in that industry, they may have a shot at becoming financially independent and having a decent quality of life in the future.
Levine now spends much of her time giving motivational keynote lectures.
If I have to kind of sum up all of the lessons I learned in the mountains, on all of my climbs, this is really, I think, the image that represents that and that is ingrained in my mind. And the image you see there, that triangular shadow, that is the shadow of the summit of Mount Everest. And for me, that picture is just a reminder that there are always going to be more mountains to climb, right? You are never done climbing. But you have to get out there and challenge the peaks. And you have to be willing to weather the storms to really learn to appreciate this kind of view. Thank you so much for having me today.
In 2009, she joined the faculty at West Point, where she teaches in the Department of Behavioral Sciences and Leadership. In 2014, Levine authored a leadership manual titled On the Edge.
Well, first of all, I think it's a mistake to rely on executives for leadership or people that have certain titles or a certain amount of tenure. I think people need to realize that everybody is in a leadership position, and leadership shouldn't be left to an executive staff or the board of directors or heads of departments. I mean, leadership really has to be everybody's responsibility, because we all have a responsibility to look out for the people on either side of us and to help move forward with the mission. And when you're in these extreme environments, you know, in the mountains or in the middle of Antarctica, God forbid if something should happen to the designated team leader, the rest of the team needs to step up to the plate.
But the experience of doing this teaches you can do more than you ever imagined.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
In her downtime, she enjoys hitting the trails with her favorite companion, her dog Trooper. Despite her physical setbacks, Alison Levine continues to strive for greatness. She reminds us that all we may need is a light bulb to go off in order to ignite our passions.